Pokemon Ultra Sun is one of the hardest games in the franchise, so randomizing it can only mean disaster, right? Every Pokemon in this game has been randomized to be something of a similar strength to the original. Even so, you never know what's coming next. To add even more of a challenge, this playthrough is a Nuzlocke, so fainting is dying and you never get the Pokemon you really want. After literally just moving into a new house, we immediately move right back out and begin our adventure by picking our starter, Skippy the Mudkip. I said Skippy the Mudkip. That's better. First things first, we have to save this cloud from this bird, but the cloud blows up on us, and then this other bird has to save us instead. Yeah, let me just skip to the good part. We officially start this journey off with a beautiful Alolan ceremony. I mean, come on. This sunset, these colors, this music. Seriously, what's not to love? Part of the ceremony involved defeating Hau in battle, and yeah, I'm sure you can imagine how that went. After all that commotion, we get to slow down a little bit and catch some new team members, most notably our second starter, Wart the Chespin. We also got Shrimp the Sandshrew, but he didn't really do much. I'll be skipping over most of the encounters that didn't end up getting used. We did catch a pretty cool Tailo though and named him Barry and put him on the team. Continuing forward through Howley City, the entire team made light work of Trial Captain Ilma's very threatening and fitting normal type team of 1 Pidgey and 2 kinds of Rattata.
First of all, I'm a rat.
By now, I'm sure most of you would love to see a real challenge. So next, we went to take on the very first Totem Pokemon, where along the way, we had to face this monstrosity. But eventually, I realized... Actually, no. Oh, I was scared for nothing. It's randomized abilities. Also, Wart evolved right before the Totem fight, so we led with him, and that ended up not being the best decision. So we switched to Johto the Pidgeotto. Did I mention we caught a Pidgeotto? We really didn't get to know him for very long, sadly, but he certainly did his part and let Barry finish up the job. Despite losing a Pokemon, the first boss fight wasn't very difficult, and neither was Hau in the following second rival fight, in which his whole team was quickly dismantled once again, despite any sinister shenanigans. With all these easy fights, I was already hoping for another challenge, so I went to fight Kahuna Hala and... yeah. But then, with Barry against his signature Crabrawler that got randomized from Crabrawler, I thought the battle was smooth sailing to the finish, but he pulled out the gimmick I had completely forgotten about, a Z-move. And this death honestly stung a little more. With the grand trial complete and a fresh new ride, we wasted no time surfing over to Akala Island in style. After a classic Gen 7 30-minute cutscene, we finally got to go and catch our first encounter on this island, Small the Vanillish. Her ability was Skill Link and she already knew the move Icicle Spear. So yeah, we abused the heck out of that combination. In Paniola Town, Hau gave us a good scare, thinking his fight would actually be difficult this time with him using a Z move. And then he just wasted on Smokescreen. So we beat him like usual and then came across a new rival and one significantly, edgier, who sent out this happy monkey, bug, cat, and speed boost Machamp. This guy really does have some issues. The next Pokemon I caught was Kushina the Vulpix to round out the Fire-Water Grass trio, and went back to the Pokemon Center to snag my first extremely broken randomized TM, Eruption. Is it OP? Yes. Does it look like I care? Absolutely not. However, we weren't really able to employ this strategy for the next Totem Pokemon because of the rain, and it would have been useful since Totem Ninjask is weak to fire. So instead, we went for its flying weakness by using Icicle Spear. As it turns out, it had weak armor, an ability that lowers its defense when hit, and we hit it several times. After yet another laughably easy fight, we caught Bongo the Rockruff, our first Generation 7 Pokemon that we were actually using. We squared off against Team Skull Grunts, squared off against Dulse from Space, and literally squared off against a bunch of our friends, looking at you, Kukui. We also trained ourselves up, got ourselves a few new encounters, until quickly facing off against the next Totem Pokemon. Before that could happen though, we had to beat the trial, and as someone with really terrible memory, I really had to lock in. But there were a lot of extra fights to do before the actual Totem, in which Groucho the Golbat evolved into Crobat, and with the Totem Pokemon being Pignite, yeah, Groucho took care of that battle with ease. Even the very fitting Fire-type ally Magmar wasn't able to do anything. After that, I wanted to train up my weaker teammates, and in the middle of doing so, and while being distracted by a very funny green screen Flygon, this soul-crushing moment took place. Favorite Pokemon I actually have right here, it's gonna look scuffed, it's a little plushy. It's Flygon, but the green screen makes Flygon look... What happened? I wasn't looking! To try and keep some type consistency for a replacement, Vulcan the Cyndaquil who we caught on the previous route was added to the team, and he also evolved while we took part in the final trial of the island. a trial in which I continued to be a bumbling buffoon, once again not paying attention to what I was supposed to be doing. Wait, what? I'm lost. But despite my short attention span, we still managed to make it all the way to the Totem Probopass. I assumed it would be an easy fight considering its 4x weakness to Skippy's ground type moves, but he just wouldn't stop healing because he had a Citrus Berry and he used Rest. However, that ended up being his downfall because he never woke up, and I like to think that Totem Probopass is still sleeping peacefully with his little hood down to this day. After our adventure in the lush jungle, we made our way to the Dimensional Research Facility for a lengthy, detailed, and informative cutscene about the game's story. And here is the biggest takeaway I got from it. Wait, totem sticker. So that you can find them inside. Learning things today. After school was out, we made our way through Diglett Tunnel into the next route where we caught the one Pokemon that every Randomizer Nuzlocke player dreams of, Slackoth. Since Slacking, with one of the highest attack stats in the game, would no longer be nerfed by Truant because of the randomized abilities. So we caught it and I swore to protect that thing with my life. I promise, I solemnly swear to not let this thing die and that I'm going to put it on the team immediately. With all the Akala Island trials completed, it was time to face off against Kahuna Olivia, who was absolutely ruthless in her fight. Her final Pokemon was Incineroar. After a very, very long fight, we barely managed to weather that cat down to 0 HP. But when the fight was over, it finally felt like we had beaten our first true boss fight, and we managed to do it deathless. With Akala Island conquered, instead of moving on to Ula Ula Island immediately, we were instead whisked away to the Aether Paradise by complete strangers so that I, a 12-year-old, could defend these grown adults' conservation center from the attack of an interdimensional lawnmower. After cutting their grass, we eventually did get to go to Ula Ula Island, where Hao instantly challenged us to a fight, and he had finally upped his game since the first fights. With his full team of Charmeleon, Venusaur, Alolan Exeggutor, Dragalge, Ultra Beast Pheromosa, and even Zubat. But luckily we had the exact counters we needed and won the fight without a single problem. Our introduction to the island also included even more strange NPC family affairs, and ones much less blonde than the rest of the game. We then bust up to the top of Mount Hokulani, where my small brain once again proved just how bad I am at the simplest of puzzles during the trial. But luckily, even my small brain could very easily handle the Totem Frogadier, who was a piece of cake to take down. Thanks to all the experience from the recent battles, we finally had both of our starters fully evolved. Despite how absolutely gorgeous and serene Mile Garden is, we witnessed an absolute squabble between two old rivals. For some reason, instead of Kukui settling the score with Guzma himself, he decided to throw me into the fight instead, once again letting the child take care of all the evil, criminal adult problems. After taking care of Guzma, we caught a Charmeleon named Hao after, well, I think you can probably guess, as well as Microwave the Magneton and Sneezy the Magmar. And one of them would be going on the team because we had a free spot, since soon after we caught them, I got overconfident against a little Minun. In F-150, the Vigoroth, who was destined to hit like a truck, tragically died right before he would have evolved. I solemnly swear to not let this thing die and that I'm going to put it on the team immediately. After one of the most painful deaths thus far, we very fittingly challenged the haunted grocery store, where the hardest fight up to this point took place. The Totem Frostlass and her SOS Bronzong had a really good matchup against my entire team. Thanks to Bronzong's Metal Sound lowering my special defense, I had to constantly be switching out, and Frostlass's Will-O-Wisp crippled my only Pokemon capable of doing the most damage. And Bronzong kept using Future Sight, which when added with Metal Sound, made it extremely difficult to keep one Pokemon in for more than 2 turns. And so, some of the team members had to be sacrificed, including Sneezy, Groucho Marx the Crobat, and poor puppy Bongo the Rockruff, who never even got to evolve since I only stream at night, and Rockruff can only evolve during the day in Ultra Sun. Speaking of which, I stream every week around 7 PM, so tune in sometime if that's your thing. And be sure to hit that sub button and notification bell if you want to know when I'm live. Sorry for the shameless plug. The timing probably could have been a little bit better than in the middle of a Pokemon obituary. Ultimately, we did win that fight, but losing 3 whole team members, 2 of which had been around for a very long time, was really tough. And even though we technically won, it still felt like a huge loss. Unfortunately, this loss set off a horrible streak of difficult fights, and this Nuzlocke only got harder and harder as time went on. To replace our fallen comrades, we welcomed Microwave the Magneton, Hao the Charizard, and Powerhouse the Reuniclus to the team. Literally, right after the last fight, Lumeria jump scared us with another Frostlass, but one that went down a lot easier this time around. And that encounter led us to Team Skull's base in Po Town for a rematch with Guzma. We quickly made it up to the top of the mansion, where we aced the entry quiz thanks to the power of Bulbapedia. And honestly, I'll admit, I cheated a little bit, and I totally got what I deserved. Against Guzma, I very stupidly sent out Charizard against Grumpig, thinking I could just use Eruption and just, one-shot everything. But thanks to Grumpig's Power Gem, yeah, that wasn't really gonna work out. The following Primarina seemed ridiculously strong until I realized she didn't have any Fairy-type moves, and Wart held me in the fight with only one death. Well, not before being immediately pitted up against Gladian's Mienshao, who outsped and killed Powerhouse despite being at like -2 speed. And by this point, you can clearly see that all these deaths and knowing I need to grind levels again and again was weighing on me. Nonetheless, the next addition to the team was Brainiac the Matang, who we got as a gift from Samson Oak for all of our sticker collecting activities. But then I went ahead and just put him in the box because he died. Brainiac died in a stupid double battle where I had much less control over the fight since I had an AI for a partner. But I still honored the death anyways, and as we progressed through like 3 consecutive boss battles in the middle of the story without a single PC in sight, and since the game auto-heals your whole team in this part, Brainiac kept trying to evolve and haunting me that I had just barely missed out on a pseudo-legendary. Speaking of being haunted, of course, boss fight Lusamine has a Frostlass because why wouldn't she? Despite all odds against us, we survived this absolute gauntlet of Pokemon battles, taking on the likes of Guzma for a 3rd time, and Lusamine with her 2 camera-ups, 1 Mega, 1 Regular, before both of them jumped in an Ultra Wormhole like it was the Hokulani Resort pool. After that family fiasco, we made our way to Pony Island, and with all the experience from those fights, Small finally became big, evolving into Vanillish as I reluctantly let go of my beloved Skill Link Icicle Spear combo. Before I knew it, we had made it all the way to Vast Pony Canyon, where Microwave was finally able to evolve as well, now solidifying our team as all fully evolved. And then also a Death Fodder Gumshoes, cause I was just tired of grinding. We trekked through the canyon, defeating the likes of pseudo-legendaries, mega-evolved Pokemon, and Hoppip, before reaching a mysterious trial site where we encountered the legendary totem Pokemon Tornadus, who was no match for our newly evolved Microwave. Following that, we witnessed some thrilling cutscenes that literally gave me goosebumps, which culminated in a fight against Dawnwink's Necrozma. Frog in my throat. Mega Venusaur, who was once again no match for Microwave. Oh yeah, and this was a whole apocalypse scenario, but I'm literally just the 12-year-old that keeps getting thrown into all this stuff. Oh look, now we're in space. And now I have to save these people's dimension too? What is this, Rick and Morty? Ultra Necrozma was randomized into Mega Mewtwo Y, which could definitely still rip apart entire dimensions, so this similar strength mod definitely works. And yeah, we caught a Bisharp in Ultra Space, so there was literally nothing he could do to hurt us. Really kind of a step down from the OG game, honestly. Ultra Necrozma, that was hard. With the world saved and all of the recent boss fights absolutely crushed, I was feeling invincible. So naturally, after being challenged to a battle by the final trial Captain Mina, I expected to easily sweep, and also naturally, her silly little giraffe, who isn't even fully evolved anymore, decided to Z-move and yoink another one of my fire types. After Vulcan's death, plus Hau, Sneezy, and Kushina, I was officially done trying to raise fire types. Next up, we battled all of the trial captains again, and honestly, I'm gonna be so honest, there were no level caps and I was way over leveled by now, so even Kyowa's Mega Heracross wasn't a big deal. Another thing I glossed over was the final totem, and like, really, this is what it ends with. And then it just sang itself to death. Sometimes you just don't know what you're gonna get with randomizers. And Kahuna Hapu, also very easy. Back on Ula Ula Island, we encountered Gladian for one final fight before climbing up to face the Elite Four. And while he did give us a run for our money, literally by using a Pokemon with Imposter against my strongest Pokemon, I was literally almost beaten by my own greed of using a way over leveled Pokemon. But in the end, human brain beats 3DS AI brain. With that fight done, it unlocked access not just to Victory Road in the Elite Four, but to our next encounter, a free Rayquaza. I'm not joking. Lily gives you Nebby at the end of the story on Melee Island, and it randomized to Rayquaza. Okay, yeah, my luck is good, I'll admit it. Speaking of Nebby though, the crash-landed Necrozma randomized to, well, Cosmoem. So fittingly, we got to end the game off with the box art legend for this game, plus a bonus box art legend. And so, after breezing through the menaces of trainers on Victory Road, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for, the Elite Four. So here's the thing, thinking the Elite Four would all be in the 60s level range and with my 2 legendaries, I might have been a little over-prepared. But honestly, it's not going to be much of a challenge when your opponents are using 2 Hailform Castforms, 2 Weaviles, 2 Alomomolas, and Kahili alone had 2 Swamperts. I don't know how it happened, but this Elite Four got randomized to be so easy and so repetitive, it's hardly even worth going over because there wasn't even a single close call for losing a Pokemon. And finally, that brings us to the very end. Not just the champion fight, but the final rival fight against Hao, who had notoriously started out extremely weak, got a Dragon Ball level power creep mid-game, and now was here for me to fight for the final time. And his first Pokemon was... I guess some things never change, do they, buddy? I mean, his team wasn't that underwhelming. He even had a legendary, but like, I had 2 of them, and mine were better. And so that brought an end to the randomized Pokemon Ultra Sun Nuzlocke. And as the sun set over Iki Town, I looked back on our adventure. The good times, the hard times, and every dimension in between. And if there's one thing I learned on this journey, it's that you should subscribe and tune into the stream because there are a ton more adventures awaiting this channel on that orange horizon. See you there.